media on Friday, education system. Our education system is at a crossroads and a shift is needed. We must do things differently for our children and the future of this island. Change is inevitable, and change is forthcoming for our public school system. The public has asked for, and this government is moving ahead with the restructuring of our current system to phase out middle schools for a two-tier system consisting of primary schools and signature schools at the senior level. The work needed to help bring about this kind of change for the benefit of our students and our educators will be both impactful and wide-reaching. There are 4 initiatives currently taking place to facilitate the education reform of Bermuda's public school system. 1, the development of an education authority. 2, the implementation of the Learning First program. 3, the phasing out of middle schools and the introduction of signature schools at the senior level. And 4, the consultation process on the introduction of parish primary schools. The Education Authority. It is not enough to say that we want our students to be challenged, to be innovative, dynamic, critical thinkers, entrepreneurs, and intellectuals. Nor is it enough to say that our educators must be equipped with the professional development and ample teaching tools to help them deliver an education curriculum with creativity, with passion, and create a positive learning environment. In order to assure that students and teachers are able to perform at these levels, we must ensure that the system as a whole functions at the highest levels possible. That will be the work of the Education Authority. The Education Authority is a committee consisting of the chairman and deputy chairman of the Board of Education, members from the Bermuda First Education Committee, and our Education Consultant Innovation Unit. They have been tasked with developing a plan which will strengthen the performance management of all schools and persons at the administrative, classroom, and student levels of support within the Department of Education. We are pleased to have the support of critical stakeholders in the creation of the Education Authority. We all want a public education system where all aspects and stakeholders work together for the betterment of students and teachers with the aim of having top-notch learning and working environment. The Learning First program. The Learning First program involves a wide range of stakeholders collaboratively working together to design an improved learning environment for public schools. As mentioned in previous statements, the 54-person design team consists of Bermudians who are educators, school leaders, parents, business persons, unions, cultural, and community partners. In the past 2 months, the design team has been busy engaged in meetings that include an introduction to digital reporting processes for education priorities, understanding and building on the public school case for change, understanding what is design thinking, changing mindsets to design a new system, solutions for redesigning the public school system, how to deliver better outcomes for learners, and using research to inform the school design process. The objective of their work is to effect during the month of November. The design team assessed the public school system from the perspective of relevant stakeholders and community members. The team members conducted surveys of students, teachers, principals, school leaders, and businesses. This research was critical to gather key data about their experiences with the public school education for such things as what is working well, during the design of schools of the system learning. The first monthly newsletter from Learning First was sent out on Friday, and by all accounts, it was received well. I encourage the public to stay updated and log on to www.bermudafirstbda.com and hit the subscribe button so you can stay informed. The phasing out of middle schools and introduction of signature schools. As stated in the 2020 speech from the throne, the government will bring forth a bill to amend the Education Act to support the decision to phase out middle schools, introduce signature schools, and move from a 3-tier system to a 2-tier public education system. The legislation will pave the way to gradually phase out middle schools. When that process begins, we will see the current M1 and M2 years moved to the primary level. Senior level signature schools introduced, and the current M3 year moved to senior school. Establish exceptionalities and alternative education for our students. As a result, the reformed education system will see primary school education consist of P1 through P8, and senior schools or signature schools consist of S1 through S5. The signature schools will focus on the learning styles and interests of our children, including academic and technical subjects, trades, business, sports, arts, and special needs education. Originally, it was anticipated that we would be able to introduce the first 2 signature schools in September 2021. However, we recognize gathering that data, there will be a need to consult on the signature foci. Our original timelines to consult and engage have been further delayed due to COVID-19, as officers were needed to deal with COVID-19 matters that arose within our schools. Once we have the firm foundation required with feedback from the widest possible consultation that includes engagement with teachers, parents, young people, and the wider public, we will open the first 2 signature schools in September 2022. Only then would a gradual phasing of middle schools begin, followed by any other structural alignments that have been consulted on and agreed to. I cannot tell you how happy I am to keep this promise on behalf of the Bermudian people. The consultation on the introduction of parish primary schools. Education reform will and has to involve the structural realignment of our school system. This realignment process will begin with a consultation process on the proposals for parish primary schools. The vision is that each primary school will become the hub of its parish, because research shows that when families, community groups, businesses, and schools band together to support learning, students achieve more in school and they enjoy their educational experience. The parish school model will facilitate a stronger and more resilient connection among students, families, and communities. Repurposed, refurbished, and redesigned public primary schools will expand courses and program offerings to provide students with the range of educational experiences and services that meet international standards. During the consultation process, the government will propose 10 primary schools, 1 per parish, with 2 schools in Pembroke Parish. The maximum enrollment of each primary school will be 300 students, with the intended class size of 15 students per class. We intend to continue to co-locate preschools on primary school sites and will consider eventually merging preschools into primary schools. The class size for preschools will remain the same at 10 students per class. With fewer primary schools, the government can deliver 21st century real-world and authentic learning facilities that are modern and support transformative teaching and learning practices. Capital funds can also be better utilized and reinvested for modernizing and refurbishing specific buildings that can support the delivery of 21st century education. The consultation document will be launched this week, and the dates of public consultation meetings will be shared in the new year. This consultation will end in March 2021. As evidenced by a misleading headline published after my update in the House of Assembly, this topic of the possible realignment of our primary schools is an emotive one, and some will try to play on that. We will launch a robust consultation process that will govern the moving forward of this or any proposal. As outlined earlier, to ensure a smooth transition, the first signature schools will be introduced in September 2022. After that, the gradual phasing out of middle schools will commence with more signature schools introduced. Any further necessary realignments will then follow. I urge the public to read the consultation document and determine for yourself if the vision presented by the government is reflective of what you want our education system to look like. If it is, then let us know and let us know why. If it isn't what you envisioned, also let us know and let us know why. We want and need your feedback to build our system. I am excited by where we are in the process of school reformation. I know that to some, and to some, it may seem that we've been talking about this process for a long time without any visible changes. With this update, the public is able to see and appreciate the foundation we have laid to get to the point we are now. As the ministry and governance teams turn to the public for their input into their education system, I again encourage the public to let your voice be heard and participate in this journey with us. The success of our education system equals the success of Bermuda. Thank you, Bermuda.
Thank you, Minister. Members of the media, any questions? Jonathan? Jonathan Bell.
Good afternoon, Minister, and
Good
thanks for having
Jonathan.
us. And I did hear you in the House of Assembly on Friday when speaking on the subject of primary schools. Is it fair to say it sounds like we're headed back to a more parish-centered culture for our primary schools? You know, I was a lot younger then, but I remember there was talk in the 90s that was something that we kind of lost in some of the changes. Are we in some ways, this is about going back to that parish-centric model of older days?
Well, Jonathan, what we have to understand is we have to look at what worked in the past, what didn't work in the past, what we need to make it work moving forward in the future. And yes, I do understand that some of the things that we're talking about will be familiar to some of our older persons within our community. But rest assured that we are not just wholesale going back to an old system that worked for the time that it was there. One thing that I do note with education and with change, it must keep up with what's going on in today's world. And the changes that we're talking about now are rooted in the research that it shows us what is happening in Bermuda now with our education system. It's just not adequately servicing our children, and we need to move forward with something else.
Thanks. And with the talk of headed to one primary school per parish model, I guess with that, can you talk about how we can avoid maybe the risk of potentially losing some of our high performance schools? I'm thinking in Southampton, we've got, we have Port Royal and we have Dalton E. Tucker, both excellent schools.
I've always been a firm believer that it's not the building, it's what's happening inside the building. And you can duplicate that in any building if you have the right resources, you have the right personnel, and you have the right attitude. What people term as high performance schools, because I don't believe that, and none of our schools in Bermuda are not high performing. I believe that we will be gaining an opportunity to do things in a manner that will be equitable for all of our students moving forward.
Thank you, sir. On the topic of the signature schools, I know it's early. We're talking now about starting with 2 of them in 2022.
Yes.
Do we have a final number for those types of schools envisaged? And kind of piggy-tailing on that, can you tell us a bit about how we plan to allocate students to the different signature schools, how that process of alignment is going to work?
Thank you for that question. That is something that will be governed by the consultative process. We recognize that we want there's a talk of between 5 and 7 of them, with 2 of them being the one for exceptionalities and one for alternative education, and 5 for what we will call general education. And so, but how the process from moving from your primary school into your signature school is something that will come about with the work that's being done by Learning First and the consultation process that goes on that. But Jonathan, I will say that the idea of expanding from P1 to P6, from P1 to P8, The reasons for doing something like that is to give our primary school students an opportunity for exposure to the various vocations that could be interest of them. So in their last 2 years of primary school, they will be exposed to the types of things that our signature schools will a feel for what it is that they might be interested in to move forward with. But I also believe it's important to point out that once you do go to a signature school, regardless of what that signature school offers, if there is something at another signature school that you find of interest, there will be methodologies in place for allow you to partake in that and utilize those subjects that might be offered in other schools that may not be, the signatures that may be offered in other schools that might not be at the school that you have decided to attend.
Oh, okay. So a potential for taking courses at different schools.
Potential of not just taking courses. As we talk about moving into a digital world, you can always do courses online.
Yeah.
You could be at one school, but participate in a digital course that's at another school. So there are all sorts of possibilities. But again, these are things that are being talked about. And when we present for consultation, these are the types of things that the public will be able to opine on and give suggestions to as well.
This question is probably a bit early to ask as well, but I took notice that there was talk of additional facilities at the primary schools in the middle or future signatory schools. Maybe you can tell us a bit about what's envisaged, a potential budget for something like that.
And that is a question that most people ask. What I have to say is, because we're in the consultative phase, it is not a good use of our time to start talking about what if we refurbish this school and that school might not be part of moving forward. So until the consult, and that's why it's important for people to understand that we are legally required to consult on these things that we're moving forward with. And we're legally required to take the information and come up with a plan based on what we've received. Once we get to that point, then we'll have a concrete idea of which direction we're moving in, which schools will be remaining, if there are some that will not be remaining, and then we can start putting together what the capital works and what the budget will look like. But rest assured, this government is invested in our school system, and that is something that we are talking about, of where funds could come from in order to do that. But at this point, saying what will happen with particular buildings, we're not at a position to do that because the consultation process is still ongoing.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Minister Rabain. That concludes the press conference.
And thank you, Bermuda.